Have you been struggling to keep your focus during meditation? Discover how being sensually embodied can help you be present in this episode. I'm Candia Raquel, and you are at the Sensual Sessions Podcast, the place to explore sensing pleasure through your senses and moving in a way that is free from inhibition and full of self expression. Make sure to subscribe to get these episodes delivered on your inbox every week at my website, which is my name, candiaraquel.com, www.candiaraquel.com. And today we have a very special guest. This is Upali. He's a meditation teacher, and I am very happy to have him here for the second time. Welcome, Upali.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here again.
So tell us, what got you started into meditation?
Yeah, that was a really long journey for me, but I think the short story is I had a friend who brought me to a community meditation center when I was in college. Um, and it was a new idea for me to sit quietly and do nothing. And I didn't really know how to do that or what that meant, but I got to show up in this space where I could, and sitting silently for 30 minutes just had a profound, transformative impact on me. Really, that profundity and the transformation was just that it felt good, and I felt good afterwards. Especially noticed that I felt good afterwards. So I knew that meditation was something that I liked. And what I didn't know at the time is I think what was happening is I was starting to find an agency with my mental states, my well-being or mental health that I hadn't had before. My sense of being a good person was like if I was in a good mood, I was a good person, and if I was in a bad mood, then I was a bad person, uh, which wasn't a great definition of character and not a great way to define mental health. What meditation I think did is it allowed me to be with like good feelings and bad feelings and um, sometimes not act on them, but sometimes maybe I would and be just more okay with them, feel like I had more agency amidst my states. So I got a calmness out of it and I got more agency with than I'd ever had with my mental health. Um, so that was the start of it. And then it just unfolded where um, I got to explore different contexts of meditation, like Vipassana meditation. I worked on an organic farm for a while, and one of the farmers was a Zen teacher and from the Soto Zen tradition. And so I'd sit quietly and do nothing with my eyes open, staring at a wall. And my experience there would be like nothing's happening. And then if I'd say that, the teacher would say, exactly. And that didn't mean very much to me. But I think just the act of taking time and being with myself and being quiet still felt appealing, especially in nature. I really like nature. Um, but where the story really culminated for me is I found a style of meditation that was a little more directive. It had more clear instructions about what to do when you're meditating, in particular, how to focus attention. And when I started getting those instructions, then I just saw this huge augmentation in my practice. For whatever reason, this style clicked with me. And then I started experiencing things that I didn't think were possible that just really deepened that sort of baseline kind of experience or value that I had, where all of a sudden, whatever state was arising was more okay, if not perfectly okay, and my sense of well-being was just deeper and greater than it ever had been. So that's kind of my journey there.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised that you found meditation during college and stick with it because, like, there's a lot going on in that moment in life. Like, you have to study, sometimes you have a side job, uh, maybe you're dating, and there are parties, and there's a lot of information and the pressure to do something with your life. So it's like a very dynamic moment with a lot of things being thrown at you, and
Mhm.
also with the like bursting potency of really early youth, and like finding like a kind of well-being after sitting and doing nothing. Like, I am surprised. Uh, didn't you felt like going crazy at any moment on that first experience? Like, what am I doing here, doing nothing except listening to my crazy mind that doesn't want
Yeah.
to stop?
Yeah, so it wasn't easy per se. And what you're describing of college, like that's exactly like all of the things that you listed were my college experience. So it is curious to me, like it's such a formative time, and some things really stick and other things don't. So it's interesting that that's what stuck for me. I think about that quite a bit, like why that was the case for me. Um, and regarding, yeah, it wasn't, it is interesting that it stuck because it wasn't all just pleasantness. There was a lot of like being really bored, feeling like I was just not going to be able to make it until the bell rang. Um, yeah, feeling confused. I don't know what's going on, what I'm supposed to do. Am I doing this right? And and yet every time I would survive, and every time I felt a little better afterwards. And it's funny. That's actually how I approach this when I'm working with people who are starting to meditate more consistently, that it's like, all right, if we do this for a while, especially on a retreat, if we're doing this a lot, there's going to be times where this doesn't feel especially easy to keep sitting and being still. But as far as we know, no one has died from sitting quietly and doing nothing yet. So you're probably going to be okay. All the things you could do with your time, this is pretty safe. And you know, if you do die of boredom on the cushion or something like that, then we'll get to like name the phenomena after you. You'll have a very auspicious death. You know, it's of all the ways to go out, meditating seems like a really I don't know, a proud one. But yeah, nobody's been named after dying of boredom on the cushion yet. So yeah, there are certainly challenges, but somehow the benefits kept outweighing the challenge.
You said that there was like the thought of, what am I doing? Am I doing things right? So it's like, if you're doing nothing, how can you do it wrong?
Yeah.
But still there's like this, perhaps this kind of conditioning or training or education to do and be productive, or in any case expecting a transactional benefit of what one is doing. In this case could be by not doing, but then could be like, am I not doing it in the right way? Like, am I, yeah. So I am curious to know which are the most common challenges for for the new blood, for the new students that come to the retreat.
Yes. So with retreats or even just practicing at home, especially practicing on your own, I'd say the greatest challenge is showing up. Uh, because just like the doubt that can arise, and this funny thing, if I'm doing nothing, how could I do it wrong? And yet that hindrance, we could call it, of doubt, will really find its way in, and kind of the silent, quiet times where there's nothing to do. Um, But showing up is really challenging then because meditation, mindfulness, they're ubiquitous now. It's like it's everywhere. When I started meditating, I'd come home to a conservative part of the United States, and if I mentioned that I meditated, I felt like what came next was like an interrogation about my religious beliefs, like whether I was Buddhist or not. Um, and now what happens is this, if I say I'm a meditation teacher, um, it, no matter where I go, the response is usually, "Oh, that is awesome. I should do more of that. I really want to learn that and do more of it." And I've had this response from like people from all different backgrounds, including like Christian pastors here where I live, who have asked me to come like teach their congregation how to meditate. Um, so it's really neat that meditation and mindfulness are just kind of normal. I think of them like exercise. Like um, not too long ago, running down the street would have been a thing that was like people would be like, "Are you safe? Like, what are you running from?" But now it's just like, "Oh, someone's exercising, they're being healthy." So meditation is really similar now. It's like kind of the mental hygiene side of things. It's like, if you're not doing it, you feel like you should. And yeah, so there's this culture now where it's known as a good thing, but it's a really hard sell to mind and body that sitting down and doing nothing is productive. So it's hard to prioritize that. Of all the things we need to do, nothing doesn't seem like the right answer. Um, yeah, so in starting, I think the challenge is to show up. And I have a couple of suggestions for that and some considerations. Um, but I guess I'll stop and see if I'm starting to answer your question here.
Yeah, exactly. Showing up, it's can be a challenge, especially if one is like fully committed in the hamster wheel of productivity. Though now meditation is like trendy, like if you're not, it's almost like smoking, it's no longer cool. Like you don't see anyone smoking in the Hollywood movies, whereas in the 50s it was like a whoo, super glamour. And if like when I grew up, I used to smoke, and like I felt part of it, it was part of an identity. And now it's like, oh no, you smoke. It's like an outsider, but disgusting with stinky breath and like, ugh, not sexy. And now meditation, it's like super cool. And I feel that maybe that could ease the entry into meditation, like at least for vanity or belonging, or to have something to post on your Instagram, like come meditate. But then, like my own experience with meditation in the beginning was like a relentless blow against myself. Like, oh my God, I cannot stop thinking random things that can derail me for minutes, even hours, or even days. Like the same idea that is nonsensical. And for me, it was like all of this is happening in my inner world, and I feel that I have like not the control I thought I have had. And the stabilization of identity, because I really identified myself with my thoughts. I
Mhm.
still do if I don't keep the watch. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna resolve everything thinking and doing. And meditation was like, okay, this is your real reality without the distractions of the doing. So that was a challenge for me. And it had to do like with the doubt, like, am I doing something wrong? And I don't know, miraculously I kept on practicing.
Yes. You described so many just rich and profound things, I think, about just the process of having a practice. and working with a practice. And especially on the side of seeing that there's, this place in our being that is just being, that like it's a human being, not a human doing. Um,
Yes.
and yet this question of who am I when I'm not doing, um, is surprisingly a big one for a lot of us, in those moments of non-doing and just really, really being with what is in our experience. That can be really liberating. It can feel like relief, ease, contentment, pleasure, joy. It can be all these really good things. And it can be threatening too, existential, confusing. So it's really, really complex, what we face just in those places of non-doing and being. It's the source of frustration. It's the source of liberation. It's all possible. Um, and there's another thing you mentioned too that it's almost exactly what I say to beginning meditators is that the entire meditative path, in a nutshell, if I just sum it up very, very succinctly, it's the amount of control you have is less than you think. And it's the same thing there. That could be liberating or terrifying. It could be either, depending on the moment. And what we're hoping for is to find freedom in that. It's like seeing things really clearly for how they are. And that leads to like just beauty, wisdom, skill. But there's challenges to see things clearly as they are. Sometimes it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Sometimes it's a lot. And yeah, so those are very clear challenges for beginner meditators, at least in my experience, doing like a retrospective. And for the advanced practitioners, what are the main challenges?
Yeah, so with advanced practitioners, I think the main challenges are actually the integration, uh, that spending so much time just being and then going back into a world and relationships where doing is oftentimes the priority. Sometimes it's hard to figure out who we are or even how to be in a world of such busyness and doing. And it's not to say that we just become only being. It's that doing is still important to us. In fact, it becomes if being becomes so much of the priority and the value, and then doing is like kind of not happening enough. Oftentimes, folks talk about like how unsatisfying that is, or how problematic it is. Um, in meditation and spending more times being, to give a more tangible example, it's like that should hopefully make like the personalities within us really come forward and our relationships to deepen and flourish, like closeness and connection. Um, so yeah, if it's ever this case of like being is just so prioritized, then all of a sudden, relationships are falling apart or loosening, and the things that we normally like to do aren't happening as much, and that's confusing. Then it's kind of a work of like, well, if that's not satisfying, what is? How can we work with that? And if there's a space of too much doing, and that's been the norm in the past, and actually that's kind of what's not satisfying, then it's working on like, all right, well then what would better look like? What would meaning and connection and closeness feel like, instead of only doing? And how could that come about in just the life that the practitioner is leading?
Yes, integration, like a little bit the matrix challenge of you want the red pill or the blue pill, and it's a little bit like you have to swallow both for what I would say like a tantric approach to spiritual practice, like see deeming everything sacred, like part of the ever unfolding beingness. So it's like not the doing to cover up the being, or the existential angst, or the silence, and the mystery, and the realization of how much we don't know, and the suffering, and also not not avoiding the worldly existence, because like if I become a nun, a lot would be solved. Like, don't have to worry about relationships, and don't have to worry about money. Just with those two, it's like the 99% of the worries, overthinking, stress put aside. But then, like, coming back and becoming one with our chaotical global politic situation. Like,
Hmm.
okay, try to meditate when your country is on fire. I mean, not
Right.
only yours, mine is also like going through a state coup.
Mm,
So it's like, okay, now, and somehow I feel that I am very lucky to to have built a meditation practice, especially because unknowingly gave me like a certain cushion of having the courage to just be in the middle of the earthquake. So it's like,
mhm.
okay, I am aware of what's going on inside me and outside of me. So yeah, definitely integration. Those are the sounds of
Yeah.
integration. Yeah, integration is challenging, and sometimes I feel that I am being pulled to one side and sometimes to the other. Like, I just want to get away and live in a cave and enjoy the pleasure of simply breathing and having a simple life. And other times I want to save the world, as if I alone
Mhm.
could do it.
Mhm. Right. I'm really touched by that phrase that you used of like being able to be amidst the earthquake. Mhm. You- Part of my background is actually out of college. I became really involved with human rights work, and the experience that I had was kind of going back and forth between these times of like having these long breaks where I would almost be like nomadic. I would sort of go on these wilderness adventures and enjoy that. And then I'd go into these working environments that would be like with nonprofit organizations or yeah, volunteer work around humanitarian rights. And actually, the reason I ended up on with the Zen teacher was yeah that I worked at this organic farm and became an organic farmer for a number of years. Uh, that arose out of being burnout doing activist work, and the burnout that I experienced was like I really cared so deeply about solving the problem of suffering, and yeah, hoping to solve it in the world. Maybe on my own, you know, if I was really successful, I was going to figure this out. And that wasn't sustainable. I would show up in these spaces where people would be having the worst days of their lives. And I feel like they would look at me and be like, "Are you okay?" Like, I was like, I just think I was really useless because I was so strung out in a mess that I couldn't. I just couldn't really be so helpful and supportive amidst suffering. And so the solution then was like, okay, if I'm going to solve the problem of suffering in the world, I have to figure this out for myself. I have to, yeah, know it for myself, and then hopefully it'll expand from there.
Yeah, like if I change, the world changes because I am part of the world. But that's so hard to put the mask first because, in a way, it looks like vanity, but the truth is that it's humbleness. Like, begin by cleaning your house and see if you can keep up with it. Like, see if you can make yourself happy or at least safe, healthy, and somehow content. And then, like, you may become an epicenter as leading through example and inspiration. And what I find super challenging in all these, like, first meditation, sitting still, being quiet, and then integration with life, is my ego identity, but at the core, like beyond woman, feminist, dancer, my credentials, Mexican, blah, 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 uh, against this, supporting that. What I feel is like a fundamental core challenge for me is my stubborn self identification with my discursive thinking. My thinking that I am what I think. And that, yeah, but at the same time, that's like what I discovered in great shock while meditating is that that's totally lacking of substance. Like, I really believe my thoughts were something to hold on, super solid, like, yeah. And and then I discovered that thoughts emerge out of who knows where. Like, suddenly I'm thinking one thing and then another thing, and then I am like fighting with myself, and then I am like indulging in gossip, like, yeah, no, and you remember what, and then that person is gonna think, and I'm gonna make them think that, so then they say, and it's like, it's me and the crazy me. And the thing is that I used to identify with the crazy me in my mind until I read a book from Reggie Ray, a Vajrayana teacher. The, the title is Touching Enlightenment. And I have been reading it and rereading it like for over 15 years already. And it was
Yeah.
like touching enlightenment. I was like, oh yeah, it's like you touch it with your ideas, almost as if my thinking was like an octopus with tentacles touching what. And no, he meant physically touching. And then I feel that I finally began meditating. Like, a lot of time passed. I still practiced sitting and just trying to be quiet, and judging myself for not being mentally quiet and trying to hold on to a certain rightness in the practice until I began being like doubtful, hesitant about that. And then I became more interested on the physical experience of having the butt in the floor and sitting and breathing. And then it was like, oh wow, I am a body. And it was very challenging to me because I am a dancer and also a biologist. Like, I know I have a body, and even more, like, I don't have a body. I am a body so far. And when I die, like there won't be another Candia ever, like with this DNA and this. So, so yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, there's something that's more authentic, more whole in the sense of like being and who you are when the body is there, when the body is included in that.
yes, when the body is included on that. And what are some challenges that you see for your students to become aware of the body? Have you seen them like with this kind of wedge between mind and body and meditating only from the neck up?
Yes, absolutely. And oh, there's so much to talk about here, even just with everything we've explored so far. Um, so one thing that I think there's a lot of threads I think that we could tie together. Um, one of them being that side of just like thoughts and thinking. I think that's such a profound insight in practicing meditation that one way it could be phrased is I am not my thoughts. That's a pretty mind-blowing experience for many of us to realize that I am not my thoughts, or maybe a phrase that feels um, more authentic to me is I'm more than my thoughts. I'm not just my thoughts. Um, and yeah, you know, thinking is really it's just so essential to who we are today and how the world is today, actually. I remember one of my most memorable conversations with one of my teachers was spending just lots of time meditating and in a retreat space and being in a place where conceptual thought like would persistently fall away and stay gone. And what surprised me about that is how efficient that was. In terms of just being and even doing things to see that I would still be there and I would be more productive than ever when conceptual thinking was gone, made me realize that conceptual thinking was like this, it felt really inefficient to me. It seemed totally unnecessary. And so I was talking to him about it and he was saying, he was like, I was like, yeah, thinking is just, it's just so inefficient, isn't it? He was like, no, thinking's wonderfully efficient. It's really efficient towards solving problems for building roads, designing cities, building bombs, going to war. You can get a lot of things done thinking. And actually, our success as a species is really because of our capacity to use concepts, symbols, thoughts to create really accurate models of reality that are very functional for doing things. But his point was it's a really great way to accomplish things and proliferate as a species. It's not the most efficient way to happiness. In fact, maybe it's oftentimes what's in the way of our happiness. And so that conversation just has stuck with me because I feel like it also kind of sums up the exploration that my path just really took afterwards of I wasn't aware of it then, but over time it was kind of like finding actually peace with both of these spaces of thinking and being and doing and being. And for example, like one of the things that I work with meditators a lot on is almost kind of compassion to this incessant thinking. Um, I think one of the first breakthroughs meditators will have is like when you start, it's like things settle down and feel a little calmer. Like I had that, like I just felt a little bit more calm after sitting quietly and doing nothing. And then you keep meditating, and what you find is this just incessant thinking that can be there. It's like, oh, I thought about what I needed to get at the grocery store once. And then I thought about it 20 more times. I'm not going to the grocery store. I'm pretty sure I didn't need to think about it that many times. Um, but there's also this place too of like how the mind works. It's an incredibly complex system. But um, if you're sitting and your options are to sit quietly and do nothing, or explore some juicy gossip. I mean, of all the things to do, like just breathing or thinking about gossip is pretty alluring. Like that's pretty hard to just put on the back burner. That is way more interesting than the breath or paying attention to the body. And so I felt like I had to learn, and I've really tried to emphasize this. I think there's more and more of a culture of this in meditation, that meditation isn't quieting the mind. It certainly doesn't have to be. And I would say those states, in my experience of conceptual thought falling away, they're not something I did. It was just a byproduct, just a byproduct of showing up and cultivating something over time. So the mind doesn't have to be quiet to meditate. In fact, it's really, really good to know what's going on in the mind. If we don't have control, there's no on and off switch for thinking. It's not that direct. So if that's the case, well, then where would we have control? And I think this is this this breakthrough with seeing that the mind is busy. It's like, well, you know what's happening in the mind. You know this inner landscape. And there might be a choice point in there that's probably going to be a relational one, where you start to get to know that and relate to it in a way that might feel maybe more conscious and aligned with what you want to do. It could be in meditation or it could be with life. But at the same time, I think we have to hold a lot of patience and grace and even compassion to like, I've just not seen any part of the mind that isn't wholesome. If you ask any of these doing parts, these thinking parts, what they want for you, it's probably like, well, I just want things to go well for you. I want the best for you. And here's how I know how to do it. And so that's why I want to do this. And then, that meditator in there starts to grow and see like, oh, I see that. And then we also know, like, maybe just getting to be here and notice the body can actually feel really gratifying. In fact, sometimes it feels even more pleasurable than gossip. Do you remember that? It's like, oh yeah, I forgot. Or sometimes it's like, no, actually, I don't think that's the case. I think the gossip is way more interesting today. And either is fine. I think it's just knowing, continuing to know in the exploration and just work with what feels like the right thing as best as we can. Um, and I know I'm saying a lot here, but there's one last thing that I'd mention that I think ties a lot of these threads together, which is counterintuitively, I think meditation is a team sport. So for example, when I teach like a community drop-in class here in town, and what we do is we meditate for 30 minutes in a group. And for folks who are meditating for the first time ever, that seems pretty daunting to sit quietly for 30 minutes. But like at least 9 times out of 10, folks will say, gosh, that went by so much more quickly. And it was so enjoyable. But it definitely went by faster than I thought it would. So it's like, oh, meditation's great. And they sit in the group and have that experience. And then they go home and try to do it on their own. It was like sitting for 5 minutes was like so hard. Like, I don't get it. Like, why was it so hard when I was alone and so easy and why did it feel so good when I was here with others? And I think there's paradoxically this experience of sitting quietly with our own minds and even like understanding and learning how to relate to what's there. It is such a relational thing to be able to do that and feel good in doing it, it really kind of takes a village to make that happen, I'd say.
Takes a village. Yeah, somehow the presence of others inspire and invite your own presence for yourself, for your own life that is passing by. And I feel that there's something unique to presence, understood as body to body presence, that somehow there's some of it, for example, now that we are in the same moment in time, in history, talking via Zoom. Like we are at the distance, but the body is present. And I feel that it's not the same when it's not happening live. Like practicing a recording, it's not the same than what some teachers call the transmission. I feel there are things that happen flesh to flesh,
Yes.
perhaps. Yeah, and and definitely, I never realized this, and now I am feeling so thankful for my teachers, and not only meditation teacher, that is only one, but my dance teachers and my grammar school teachers and the people that were there for me, like, yeah, like the presence, the company, and it's like a container. And I mean, I practice alone now because I live in the mountains far away and I have a crazy schedule. And now I realize how much challenging is the practice, because there's almost as if you could feel the temperature, the warmness of other people around you, and they, I don't know, like they made like a meta fluffiness for your meditation experience. And practicing alone is, I feel it like colder because you are against yourself. Not that you are against, but it's like a more naked experience, like a more hermit kind of practice. And I feel very lucky that I got to have like this safe space and contention of my meditation village in the beginning, so I could like get traction. And really, meditation has permeated in my life in such a way that I try to capture the moments where I can just be there being.
Hmm.
Sometimes washing the dishes, folding the laundry. And there are honestly, like, I can see how the practice of meditation has overflow into my life and have created very enlivening ripples of spaciousness in in situations that had seemed so like overwhelming and tight and solid, like a little space to breathe, and then you can disentangle whatever situation. And and it makes a lot of sense what you say, that meditation is not about quieting the mind. And I feel a relief knowing that there's
Hmm.
not an on off switch, but rather it's a practice of welcoming the totality of the self, not only the discursive thinking, but also the sensing of the body, and also the alluring gossip, and the possibility to have agency on your own experience. Because at least like now I realize that I am aware when I engage in my own gossip, and there are times that I cannot stand it. Like I see it and meditate and practice, but it's like, yes, but I need to not struggle to just sense my breathing, because my mind is super crazy, and like I am thinking on the grocery list like 25 times. So yeah, I want to ask you for some. tips on how to wear down the pull of engaging into gossip and the
Mm.
iteration of the same thing, and the role of beingness, which is a fleshly experience and pleasurable, like just feeling no bad, not bad, like not being in hell feels good.
Yeah.
And we are sold that well-being and goodness is something like 4th of July kind of spectacular, or vacations in the Bahamas, and like Instagram Hollywood wellness. And it's something more nuanced as the wings of a butterfly flickering, or I don't know, like drinking water when you're thirsty.
Yeah. Yeah, so this makes me think of a couple of things here. I'll start with, you know, where I really hope meditation will move towards in its popularity and in popular culture is the reason why it's so popular probably arose out of a process, but I think especially the recent mainstream acceptance of mindfulness and meditation probably came from the clinical studies showing essentially this validation that there is stress reduction with meditation. Um, and there's a lot of like measurable benefits that meditation can have on our physiology. And because of that, it's like meditation has been accepted as a really viable and worthwhile thing to do. But that frame is essentially that it's remedial, um, meaning I remember like looking into this and just seeing what would happen if I just kind of asked the internet, why should I meditate? And I think the first answer I got was an article from the Mayo Clinic. And the answer was like, you should meditate because there's all these benefits. But the reason why you need to do it is because you're stressed out. And the reason why you're stressed out is you exist. Like that was the conclusion, which actually is very Buddhist, like that's like the first noble truth in Buddhism. There is stress, unsatisfactoriness, suffering, if you want to translate it that way. Um, but what is the case with something that's remedial is it's just hard to sustain that. Like if we are showing up to practice because we have to fix a problem, we can probably do that for about 2 weeks tops. I think about this with like I've had to go to physical therapy and it's so good. Like I had a shoulder injury and it was just all the right things for my shoulder. It felt wonderful, but I just couldn't keep it up for longer than 2 weeks because it just felt like the problem that I had to fix, I suppose. I think there's studies that just show that when you're doing a practice that's to fix a problem, it's just harder to sustain, especially on your own. So what I hope the culture of meditation can move towards would be um, this is a good way to spend our time. Of all the things that you could do if you're by yourself or with others, to get to sit quietly and unplug and just enjoy. Um, yeah, maybe on your own, maybe with others, maybe in nature. I love nature as an example of all the ways to take something in, just sort of being, seeing like a beautiful landscape or hearing the sounds. Uh, that's a nice way to experience that moment. And so I think this approach of meditation is a good way to spend our time, might make it more viable and appealing in the long term for a lot of us. One way I could frame that too, that I think makes a lot more sense is if you were to go spend time with your friends, you probably wouldn't say like, okay, here's all the problems that I have. going to schedule this time with my friends so that they can fix them for me. And, I've read that time with friends is good for longevity. So I'm going to hope that, like, at the end of our hour, I'm going to live a little longer or something like that. Like, it, if that was the way that you were relating to your friends, they probably wouldn't want to spend time with you because of like this intensity around having to be productive with friend hangout time. Um, I gave this example once, and I had a student who said, "No, that's exactly why I started meditating because that's how I was approaching spending time with my friends is like how I could be efficient and productive with my friend time." And it didn't work very well. So I like thinking of it that way. Like just like when you hang out with friends or family, you don't have to do anything or accomplish anything or fix anything. It's just a nice way to spend time. Could that be the case for time to ourselves? Could that be what meditation is? It's just a really good way to spend some time. Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
not transactional.
Yes.
It's not like I am doing this in order to get this. I am doing physiotherapy to fix my shoulder. I am visiting my friends so I can live longer. And the beautiful thing is that the practice itself is so generous. It gives you so many benefits. Like, in order to heal your past, improve your present, and get training for dealing with whatever kind of curveballs life sends you, including the final battle that no one wins. No, like
Right.
like with meditation, like okay, let's just be with the moment as it shows up quietly and sitting, and you know take some courage as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that like ultimately, essentially it just makes us vulnerable with life and death. And I think that was quite a tipping point for me in the practice is I got into meditation I was inspired by mental well-being, something that I didn't expect, but really allowed me to stick with it was like existential peace. Kind of this big question of life and death all of a sudden felt so okay as a result of practicing. And for me, a lot of that was reflected in being in ecology and nature. But I think there can be so many resources to that in terms of being with ourselves, our minds, our bodies, being with each other. Um, yeah, and nature too.
Yeah, and it's almost as if this kind of spaciousness and availability for the present that the practice of meditation like motivates allows for the rest of our thousand processes of living follow their course. Like I've realized that I think better because of meditation. Like, at least I realize that this is the 20th time that I am going through the supermarket list. And it has also allowed in this spaciousness the curiosity. Like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I am distracted, but also, like, isn't it that I am judging myself? And the curiosity on what part in me is talking against this other part that is talking in me, and where is this stemming from? And at the end, everything is related with everything, and there is no like unique arousal of phenomena. It's like, oh no, emptiness. There's nothing to hold on to. But like, that has given me more grace, especially during the hard times, like I am really angry in this moment.
Mm.
And yes, I'm gonna act on this anger. Like even the times that I have decided to do something that is not the best behavior, it's like mm, I feel that this practice, yeah, reinforces your agency. You become more responsible and more more deliberate in your choosing, and also more anchored in the living experience of the fleshiness, of the sensitivity of the body, of the breathing, of like, wow, today is so hard to sit with an upright posture. And like, why is my left ankle kind of hurting? Another days that is like, oh wow, I am wonderful now. And it's like, yeah, a very transparent contact with this mystery of being alive here now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think also what you named there around like finding agency, it's so interesting that, earlier I was saying that the meditative path in a nutshell is saying the amount of control you have is less than you think. Paradoxically, the further down the path of meditation uh, people that I work with go, and this has been the case for myself as well, more agency than ever starts to shine through. And that agency arises around being able to, I suppose, embody, fulfill some of the things that just align with our greatest values, the most important things. And I think so much of that is coming from this place of connection, that seeing, you know, um, I would say just like non-isolation, you know, the grocery list, for example. I guess there's a place where it's like, it's so frustrating. Like, what? Just stop. I don't want this. But then if we ask the grocery list planner what it wants, it says, well, you gotta eat. I'm just here to keep you alive. We just, sure, like maybe we know this, but if you forget me, um, then what's going to happen? I don't know. I don't know if I like the outcome of that or those odds of not remembering to buy food. Um, it's that all of these things in our experience aren't happening in isolation. And if something feels like they should or they are, in a way, it's bringing repair to that, I would say. It's like just finding connection.
Yeah, finding connection to the infinite aspects of ourselves and others. Like it has also this quality of getting curious about other people and how they change and how they have their own minds. So, just to wrap up, would you share with us a little tip or mini exercise practice or something to allow ourselves to be more embodied when we are meditating?
Sure, I'll do my best here. Meditation can mean a lot of different things. So what I especially want to emphasize is that meditation, different techniques, different methods work better for different people. So there's no one right way. I've thought a lot about how to talk about meditation universally, and so far the way that I've gotten the place that I've gotten is the definition that I have is we might see kind of two categories to it. And one that I think we've been exploring a lot here would be kind of like a way of relating, maybe even a way of being. So it's going to really emphasize like, okay, could we just know what's happening right now? If there's reactivity, if there's wanting or not wanting, could we just care for that? Um, or in just sort of knowing that it's a beautiful day out. Like, could we just know that and maybe even enjoy that? Maybe this is giving us the opportunity, the agency towards enjoyment that might not be there otherwise without that knowing. So there's this relational side to it. The other category that I have would be this technical side of it, like a technique, meaning that maybe there is a bit of doing to meditation. And that was the part that really worked for me. And for some folks, this really doesn't work. So I would encourage using maybe a little bit of both if that could work, or just sort of knowing what does or doesn't work for you and going in that direction. But the technical side would be like kind of like especially on the side of like seeing that there's like attention, that there's a way of paying attention. Um, and one way I could sort of sum this up is that when I was younger, I felt like everyone told me to pay attention, but nobody told me how. And so there is a process that we can train that almost is like an exercise in meditation. So let's say that you want to pay attention to the body. The breath is a really common meditation object. And yeah, it's neutral. So relative to other parts of our experience, it's quite boring, especially starting out. Um, but it's what's happening right now. So it's present moment. And this is why we might pay attention to something like sound or sight or physical, like in the body. It's like if we think about like the grocery list, that's probably planning for something in the future. But if we are with the breath, that's something that's happening right now. And more moments of paying attention to what's happening right now usually gives the subjective experience of like feeling presence, maybe even feeling ease or stillness. So that's why we would do that. So the technical side of this is just seeing that you could rest your attention on the breathing. And of course, what will happen next is you'll be distracted. So well, let's plan for that and maybe even be excited about it. Because when you're distracted, you could know that. And then when it's possible, whether it's in a second or an hour, if you could return to breathing or someplace in the body or something that's happening right now, that process of just returning, that's where it's almost like I really like it, the description of it, like this bicep curl for your mind. You know, this is exercising the capacity to move attention where you might want it to go intentionally, skillfully, in a way, and to a place that might feel quite nice. Um, so that's a big picture description, but it's essentially like, well, could you breathe? Well, of course you could, because you know you're here. If you weren't breathing, you wouldn't be. But could you know that you're breathing? And and yeah, could you spend a moment with that? And then could you notice that when you're not with it? And just know that and see if it's possible to return. And I'd say that's kind of it as far as what to do in meditation.
I am loving the elegant, apparent simplicity of this. Like, okay, first, the relational aspect of noticing and like, ah, yeah, the butterfly. And the technique of paying attention. Now I realize that no one taught me how to pay attention until today that you have just taught me. And I feel so relieved because luckily I learned on my own how to pay attention and how to bring myself back to the task at hand as soon as I got derailed. But this coming back to the thing had always been loaded with self criticism and judgment
Mm,
and punishment and the labeling. You did something wrong. You got distracted. You bad girl.
mm,
And sometimes like even the punishment of self punishment that okay now I have to feel bad for it in order to make up for it Mexico is a Catholic country, so even though I had like kind of hippie parents, this idea of punishment and sin and doing things wrong
Right.
somehow permeated into my mind. And now I realize it's crap because the nature of the mind is to be everywhere and scanning. It's like the part of you that always has the grocery list here wants you to eat. It has a purpose and a function. Sometimes it interferes in the wrong moment when no one is calling for the grocery list. But now it's like, ah, okay, that's the other 50% of the whole practice of paying attention. So, and even the most important part, for example, when you're training your bicep, the most important thing is not the going, but the slow return, because in this eccentric kind of movement against load, against force, is when there are like micro breaking of muscular fibers, the regeneration and the building of more muscle. And of course, like even people that is great at debating and great in their discursive thinking have this ability of someone trying to break their frame, they drifting away a little bit and then coming back to the matter of at hand. And it's also like a very important skill for survival. I feel it has to do with adaptability. Like I was doing this and then I got distracted and then I go back to this. And in this going back, it's not just a random going back, but it's like almost a reinforced awareness that may allow you to go back with a different kind of involvement and engagement because you are not
Yes.
only in the same track just doing good, doing your good thing, but you're coming back and you have a little perspective like, oh yeah, I got distracted, I am back to focus. So that
Yeah.
feels so good, and I am very happy now. I know how to
Yes.
pay
Yeah.
attention.
That's yeah, and that's that process that you described there is exactly it. Like in the long term, the mind responds best to positive reinforcement. So where we can really celebrate and enjoy the returning. In fact, finding a place to be that feels enjoyable, wonderful even, makes it really alluring to return to. Um, and sometimes, I totally resonate with that kind of the castigating, the critical part of the mind. I think a lot of us have that. And I think that's where like the team sport part of meditation is so important. And I see this time and time again is that when meditators get together, and I thought the first time I shared what was happening in my mind with others, like the secret would get out that I'm crazy or just that I'm really bad at meditation or something, which is waiting to be essentially punished for having the mind that I have. And the response that I got was like, it was either, oh, me too, I have that same experience. Or kind of like excitement and celebration. Oh, that's so cool that you're aware of what's happening there. That sounds really significant. So that experience can be really hard, sometimes almost too much to have to work with of the critical parts of the mind. But finding a place where something could feel possible or okay, or just knowing that it's shared might sort of relieve the burden. Um, but working towards that place of, at, at the very least, caring for the critical parts of our experience, and on the good days, maybe even training that like celebratory positive reinforcement to showing up and doing the thing that we care about and we like and really feels good for us. And most likely, if that's the case for us, it's probably going to be the case for others too. So it's a really beautiful thing, really important thing to engage with.
Yes, celebrating the little wins. Like, okay, we are very hard to judge ourselves and treat ourselves badly. Part of the practice of well-being, of self-care, of mental health is like doing the opposite, which is actually the basic thing of being realistic. Like you are doing good, you are taking care of yourself. Let's celebrate it. So, how can we know more about your your retreats to go and celebrate with you existence?
Yeah. Ooh, that's such a good description of retreats. I think
Yeah,
I've never put it that way, but maybe that's how I need to start describing them. Come celebrate existence.
yeah, with Upali.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it really feels like that with this frame of the practice.
it really is feeling like that for me more and more in retreat spaces. One person who's attended a number of retreats with me in the past helped give the title to some of my retreats of like a gathering. It's like kind of getting together and being able to practice and have silence and time on your own, but also kind of like a shared experience, maybe even celebration. So yes, that you can find retreats. There's a number of silent retreats I teach throughout the year. You can find them on my website, upalimeditation.com. And there you'll also find some resources. I have a couple of articles that talk about some of the things we talked about today, like meditation isn't quieting the mind, and um, a couple of other explorations there in the resources. But as far as retreats go, there's also some online options that are just day of practice retreats where they're online over Zoom. And you can practice with others in a virtual space, and then we get to talk. I can talk with you about your practice, and you can hear from others about theirs. So it's a bit of silence and social time. And the in-person retreats happen right now. It's primarily North America and Europe. So Tennessee and Arizona are some states I'm teaching in here in the US. And then in Europe, I'll teach a 5-day retreat in Spain and a 10-day retreat in Germany next year.
Yay! Spain, Germany. Let's go to all of them.
Yes, please. The more
Yeah,
the merrier.
yeah, the more the merrier. Thank you so much, Opali. Great
Yeah, thank you,
having you
Candia.
here. Yeah,
Such an honor, such a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you.
thank you. And also thank you, sensualists, for being here. Go to Opali's website and check the articles about meditation there. You can also book online retreats that are via Zoom or in-person retreats, so you coordinate your next trip to the US or Europe. You're also on Instagram, don't you?
That's right. Yeah, everything, anywhere I'm publicly, it's Upali Meditation. So that's my
Upali
Instagram
Meditation,
handle too. Yeah.
Instagram. Okay, so go follow Upali Meditation on Instagram. And if you haven't already, go grab the free guide to awaken sensuality at my website, candiaraquel.com, www.candiaraquel.com. Until next time, remember to take the time to sense your fire so you can share the flame. Yay!
Cool.